Good evening, everyone. I think we have a quorum. And because the sheriff is joining us, I would ask that if no one has an objection, that law enforcement take the lead.
I have no objection, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Isaiah.
Me neither.
Thanks, Randall.
How about now? Everybody, can you hear me? I'm stuck in
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
terrible broadband. It's seems to be a timely topic. It's 6:02 by my clock, and I won't be sharing video because I can barely have the bandwidth to do this thing tonight. Miss Gwen, if you would call the roll, we can kick off the Carter County Law Enforcement Committee.
Randall Jenkins,
Here.
Mike Hill,
Here.
Robert Acuff,
Here.
Brad Johnson,
Here.
Thomas Prophet,
Here.
Ginger Holdren,
Here.
Daniel McInturf,
Here.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Here.
Okay, quorum is present. There are no minutes from the previous session because there hasn't been one in quite a while. So without further ado, I will recognize Sheriff Lunsford. And if you have your agenda in front of you, there's some topics that Chairperson Holdren wanted to cover with our sheriff. You can probably read those for yourself, or I'll touch on the bullets. Possibility of sheriff department role regarding neglected, abused strays and other needed loving care of animals. Topic, broken state laws such as running at large. Third topic, aggressive behavior such as biting. Fourth topic, could the sheriff's department answer all aggressive behavior calls? Fifth topic, could the animal shelter have one officer employee that handles all the neglect and mistreatment calls? And the sixth topic, could the responsibility of other state laws be shared, like animal shelter goes on scene first and sheriff's department is only called out if necessary? So with that, I will pitch to the sheriff and open the floor for this discussion.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm rather new at this. We have not stopped, nor will we stop answering any and all calls for service regarding any public safety issue, be it animals or anything else. Stray dogs, the care of animals, that's not our responsibility. I tried to help with it. It worked out for 3 years somewhat until it got to the point where I couldn't get anyone to volunteer to put in an extra week's work. So we're out of the animal control business, but we have not stopped responding to calls for service, no really. Let me pull up the agenda because I don't have it in front of me. Anybody got any questions?
Hearing none, Sheriff, are there any of these bullet points you'd like to address specifically?
Well, not really. We got into this originally because, as we know, the county couldn't afford the time to hire 4 full-time animal control officers. It's definitely needed, but I would suggest that any attempt that you make at this, that you go extremely slow. I think we went from 0 to everybody, not everybody, but some people jumping in 100 miles an hour. We can't afford, in my opinion, this county can't, what some people want. It's about managing expectations. this county, I keep saying this, cannot afford, no, I don't think we want to get into business of picking up stray dogs. The expense bogging down along, but that's not law enforcement's job. If it's a public safety issue, we will respond. But, as far as who responds first, what the animal shelter does and their director directs her employees to do is not my concern. I stay in my lane. Law enforcement is my lane. We will always respond first. We will not wait on someone else to respond first. If a call is dispatched through 911, we will respond first. And if the officer gets there and deems that it's not a law enforcement issue, then he will turn that back to comm center, and you all will have to adopt the policy as to who he calls to the animal shelter, who 911 calls, and who's dispatched from the animal shelter to take care of non-violations of state laws involving animals.
Sheriff, I will speak since I originated that email. I again want to thank you for your willingness to be here tonight. It means a lot to us. My goal was just to open a discussion to try to find a solution, because I do believe animal control is needed. I don't know about the other commissioners, but I am getting calls from the public, fussing at me because we don't currently have animal control to their knowledge, because our animal shelter director went on 2 news channels and the local newspapers and said, we have no animal control in Carter County. That is kind of what led to an uproar from the citizens thinking that we don't have animal control. And I knew it was state law, and I knew that you were responding to those things. But there's rumors out there that people are calling and they're being told that the sheriff's department will not respond. And anyway, I'm glad you're here. And all I'm trying to do is see if we have any common ground that can save the county some money, can help the animal shelter and all the citizens that are upset about the issue, and of course to take care of the animals themselves. I'm just trying to start a discussion, sir. That's all I'm trying to do. I hope that's understood.
Yes, ma'am. I do understand. And I appreciate your concern. And there are rumors, and I mean, you've had a conversation before about rumors. When you hear these things, call me. Excuse me. But and again, it's about expectations. Some people see animal control as responding to animal issues of a law enforcement nature. That's not what we're talking about here. Not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about animal control. I'm talking about the animal shelter or whoever does animal issues outside of violation of state law and emergency issues where there's public safety at risk. That has never ceased. It never will cease. It can't cease. We respond to all calls for animal issues. And when the officer gets there, if it's 2 stray pups on somebody's back porch, we can't do nothing with them. That's not my responsibility. And I'm not trying to be short, but it's not. And I tried to help with it. And to be quite blunt, some drug me over coals because of it, because of expectations. They still expected me, my officers, to be going out picking up stray dogs. That was never my intentions. And if you go back and look at the minutes when we started this on-call animal control, that was never the intent. And you all have to make a decision, in my opinion, 2 issues. If you want the county in the animal shelter business, and if you want the county in animal control business, neither is required. But if you're going to do either or both, there's going to be expenses involved. You know, it's like any other service. When we provide services to the citizens, there's a cost involved, be it picking up trash or stray animals or police officers, EMS, fire. There's cost involved in any service that we provide to the citizens, and you can't do it for zero. It can't be done. And I tried my best for 3 years to help with the issue, and I thought based upon what the cost was and what we were doing, it was sufficient. Like I said, until I got to the point where my jailers don't want to do it, and I'm not going to force someone to work weeks overtime during the 20-day pay period. I don't think that's appropriate. I'll be violating EEOC guidelines if I did that. But it got to that point, and I can't force them, nor would I, to do it. So we're out, and I will help in any way that I can help, with the understanding that my job's law enforcement. Crime's down 38%. That's what I get paid for. We enforce the laws, and I have a lot of good people here, and we do it very well. But you know, anytime we start taking away from our law enforcement responsibilities and start putting those resources elsewhere, that's not good for the county as a whole. So that's my issue, and I will help. I'll sit on any meetings. I'll have a conversation. You can come and see me, any of them, and I'll sit down and have a conversation with you and, about the issue, show you some numbers, stats, whatever you want to see that I can have access to.
Sheriff Bob Acuff, 1st District, thanks again for coming on tonight to answer questions. We had a commissioner here in the 1st District, not me, who brought up at the commission meeting that he had been contacted by an individual whose son was attacked by a dog. And when that individual called 911, was told that, if my memory serves me correctly, that there were no animal control officers available, or I think is the way the commissioner says, the sheriff's office doesn't do that anymore. So I think there's a big issue of miscommunication or confusion. And as long as you're addressing the cause and we are protecting our citizens, particularly when a young child or an individual is attacked by a dog, and you're dispatching someone as an animal control officer to take care of that situation, then I think we're okay. I really believe we need to open up the lines of communication, make sure that you say, yeah, we do this. And when an individual is attacked, we'll take action.
Yes, but you see, that's not an animal control issue. That's a law enforcement issue. And the way that should be handled, that commissioner should have came to see me or called me and let me look up the call, because I just find it hard to believe that 911 would not dispatch a law enforcement officer. If someone was bit, there's a public safety issue. But the only way I can answer that question is if I have the date, time, name, and address. And he should have came to me or called me, and I would address that situation. And if it was true, then we could put an end to it, and I could address if there was any violations of policy at that point. But I would have to pull up the 911 log and see that to believe it, to be quite honest with you, that we did not respond to 911.
Sheriff, can I address that? Can I address that situation? I'm familiar with it. I did read the individuals involved in that situation did come to my office and speak to me about it. It was a 911 call. Officers were dispatched out. They did come to the call, and as you know, it was a dog bite. It wasn't as severe as we were told. It was a neighbor's dog, and they didn't want to press charges at the time. So they were given the information to do a private summons, which they did. It did travel through the court system. It made its way through the court system. And there were stipulations put on the owner of the dogs and the piece of property. If they violated certain orders that the judge put down, the dogs would be removed. And that's another thing we all have to understand, that when the officers go out to these calls, if it's not an arrestable offense, the individuals can go down to Johnny Blankenship's office and do a summons for dogs running at large or any type of misdemeanor crime. They can file their own summons for a criminal offense, and it's pursued the same way as an arrest. I mean, the individual can end up on probation. The dogs can be taken and put to the shelter. So that's what that happened. And also the doctor's bills that were caused from the dog bite restitution was also ordered for this individual for the doctor's bills. So that's just the kind of tidbit information on that scenario. I didn't want anybody to think that 911 was called and an officer didn't respond. An officer did respond, and then the route kind of changed once the officer gets there. It kind of does anytime they're getting on a call, that it can go either way. So just wanted to kind of clarify that. I have spoken to those people, and they're dealing with the district attorney's office right now because some stuff's been violated in the orders. But once again, that's in the court system's hands.
Thank you. Yes, that's usually what happens. You hear these rumors, and I don't know what else to call them, and there's usually very little truth in them, just like in this instance. And you can, as Mayor Woodley said, go down yourself, and that's what you have to do. Misdemeanor violations, which is what these are, these do not occur in the officer's presence. Usually, when the officer gets there, the situation is mostly resolved, and the officer didn't see anything. Well, he can't act based upon what someone says. We don't put people in jail in this country because somebody said they did something and they want to put in jail. If that citizen can come down here and take a summons out, if they have a nuisance problem with animals, you can file civil action in Sessions Court under nuisance laws. It's a civil action. But I can't do that for you, nor can I take a summons out for you or one of the officers when they don't see something. There's always officer discretion too. But that's why these things get twisted and get miscommunicated. And I don't know how else to say it, but a lot of it, it's about throwing rocks at others and it's not appreciated. And we shouldn't do that. I don't do that. I would never do that to you. But again, what you should have done was you should have came and saw me, and we got to the truth of it and put it to an end rather abruptly. But thank you very much, Mike.
Anything else for the sheriff?
Chairman Hill, if I can just kind of try to wrap up what I think I've heard tonight. Sheriff, whenever the
Yes.
animal shelter came to us 2 to 3 months ago, I believe the request was for 2 full-time animal control officers and 2 part-time. I believe that I'm correct if I say that a majority of the commission felt like that was a little on the excessive side and probably more than what we could afford. So I guess what I was getting at in the email that I sent Chairman Hill was, if you all are answering 911 calls, which primarily refer to aggression and harm, then, could we as a county get away with 1 to 2 animal control officers handling abuse and neglect and those kinds of things? That was, I guess, my overall intent for the evening in this committee.
Well, ma'am, the abuse and neglect calls, sometimes those are violations of state law. We handle those as well, because that's still, there's state laws that cover the protection of animals. Excuse me, but a lot of this gets into interpretation. We have people that wanted me to put the rest of the dogs outside under 40 degrees weather. Well, that's not where we need to go here. And that's not what state laws say, but we want. And again, there's some officer discretion. I'm not on the scene of these, and neither are any of us. So when an officer responds to a scene, be it any scene, animal issue, or car accident, on misdemeanor violations, there's officer discretion, whether or not he thinks there's reason to believe that he would issue a citation. We're not going to arrest on those, but we issue citations. But that's officer's call. And if the citizen disagrees with that, then the citizen has that right to come to the clerk's office and take out the summons themselves and prosecute that case. But we would still respond to neglect, animal neglect. But your opinion of neglect and my opinion of neglect may be different than what that officer's opinion of neglect is. It's subjective. So just keep that in mind. But we'll respond to those calls too.
Okay. I guess I'm using broad terms. I don't know how to make it clearer, and I apologize for that. But like the example you gave earlier, if it's just 2 puppies on the porch that nobody knows where they came from, that's not really an officer situation. And that's the kind of thing I'm trying to figure out is, could we have 1 to 2 animal control officers that help us handle those things? And, you know, that's just what I'm trying to figure out.
I understand, but that's, yeah, it's getting out of my lane a little bit here. You know, I think you're gonna have to rely on either the animal shelter director or the animal board or someone else that, because I don't know what their issues are at the animal shelter. I don't know. It's not, it'll work for me, obviously, so I don't know what they've got down there, what their capabilities are. But, you know, you can look up the calls, and I don't know how we separate the calls with the new records management system. Maybe somewhere down the road, we'll be able to separate the animal calls into categories, which may give you a better understanding of what's an actual 2 dogs in a box on the back porch or a public safety issue. But I really can't answer that for you.
Sheriff, if I might, I think Ms. Holdren is looking for some definition of the boundary between the gap in what is the state law and the sheriff's department obligation and whatever is left, so that they can maybe ascertain what is necessary in the way of a dog catcher or something to fill the void, the gap between the safety calls and the state law and everything else. And also, and I'll shut up then because I'm supposed to only mediate the conversation, but is there a training or a triage of sorts that could be put into place with the 911 folks to kind of divine whether it's truly an animal type emergency, a public safety emergency, or something that could be handled the next day? And I'll just leave that there with you, sir.
Well, my first response would be no, because 911 is going to be busy triaging people, and I'm not trying to be rude here, but for ask 911 to start triaging whether animal, I don't know. You got to remember, we've not done this before. That's why I can't give you an answer of whether one animal control officer can do this if when you're only talking about non-law enforcement animal control issues. I don't know, because I don't know what the numbers are, because they're not separated out. They're put into all one category, animal calls. So what, my suggestion again would be go slow, whatever you all decide to do, be it animal regulations, county ordinances, go slow. There's a progression here to where you're going to have to go forward, pull backwards, have conversations until you get where you want to be. And I don't know where that's at. And I don't know what the answers are, because again, so we've not done this before in this county. So I don't know how I can't give you an answer, but I will help you the way I can help.
Thank you, sir. Anything else for the sheriff?
Chairman Hill, this is Director Posada.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sheriff, I just wanted to clarify, is it not true that there's several weeks that we did not have animal control available throughout the county?
Yes, ma'am, that's happened. There was a slow thing when we went from 5 officers to 2 before we got out of the business, because of what I was talking about. 3 resigned and said they didn't want to do it anymore. It's extra duties, so I couldn't make them do it. But yes, there was times where we had, out of the 5 weeks, we only had 2 weeks of animal control officer, not police officers responding to 911 calls for service, but the secondary response of an animal control officer.
Correct. And I do thank you for working with the shelter and working through our community and helping out the citizens that had concerns about these animals. Also, in responding to the calls, I believe there's a little bit of a communication that we need to touch base with 911 communication with. At this time, I believe they're telling everyone that there is no animal control officers available. There is no animal control. I know that they have asked them to call the animal shelter. And I know that it has been referred to the mayor's office. And so I just tell them if they feel it's an emergency, they need to call 911. As always, the sheriff's department does all of our neglect cases, all the cruelty cases, anything like that. And the deputy has to write those reports up. So I think that we possibly need to touch base with 911 and just let them know that where the calls are supposed to be deviated out to.
I did that last week. I called Dale Levens, the director, and I did have a conversation with him. So maybe that will clear up some of this, but we had a conversation. We're both on the same page as to when officers respond.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
So,
I appreciate that.
Sherman Hill, Brad Johnson.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak about a couple of the points of it. As Commissioner Holden and I had previously stated, and I want to bring it back up before the committee here of standing commissioners, that we have, I'm saying we, the Financial Management Committee, had been tasked by the full body of our commission to research and examine and to make recommendations back to the full body as to the topic of animal control or the operations at the animal shelter based on everything around us, all of our surroundings, all the counties in our surroundings, and even in the region of North Carolina across the state line. And our committee, by the leadership of Ms. Holden, has done so, and it's lengthy and it takes a lot of dadgum time. And there's a lot of facts that has come out of this. If those that are complaining, if they will wait to our full commission meeting, which will be coming up, they can see the numbers themselves. It's not any of our personal preference. It's not what we want. The numbers speak for itself, and they'd still complain, I guarantee you. Now, I was standing in a public place last week, and there happened to be a couple officers of our county to come in. And in the meantime, where they were standing in the public, over their microphone, come a call from 911 on an animal situation, knowing their codes, because I was a previous officer. And the call was by 911 to dispatch that officer to an area here in the county because the complainant stated there was two dogs, a large one and a small one, that ran through her yard. She didn't know where they come from. They hadn't done any damage, but she wants an officer to respond. That's the kind of control you have. Now, from a standpoint of a law officer, I'm telling you that if I'm on patrol in a cruiser and I'm on a call for an animal control, unless it's just for an animal attack, other than that, and I get a secondary call back up, which has involved the health and welfare of the public, guess who goes down the drain? Now, you're making calls that you're not qualified to do and being critical of our law enforcement officers out there that has to make judgment calls, and they know their law. They are not civil officers. It's not even taught in the academy. Now, because they don't have animal control, here's the light bulb, and you all voted on it on the main floor. The last time it came up, came with the request of X amount of employees for animal control, part-time and full-time. But behind that was a 14-page article that was adopted, or pieces of it come from Knox County, which we have found since is a multi-million-dollar animal shelter department. And it had every kind of rule, including laws. It also included fining, sentencing, costing the public, which is involved, and it was voted down because of that. Do they want to improve that? Did they do any research at all? Go to their board meeting to find out on their minutes. Not one dad burn time. So, it gets kind of tired of them wanting to point fingers when they don't do their own work. Now, because it's going to Ms. Holden, I'll guarantee you the little blue-haired women are on Facebook and they're just going to charm, which we got to be considerate about what it costs in this county for such an operation. And if you remember also on the main floor, when this came up, it came up and the question was asked on the floor, what is the cost of your request? Well, I don't know. So that's why we at where we're at today. And it has been grueling, and I think Ms. Holden should be highly commended for the job they're doing. The ones where the animals have attacked a human being. I, as an officer and an employee of this county, had an arrest warrant placed on me because I had to eliminate a dog that attacked a small child at one of the elementary schools on a football game at night. And I lured the dog because nobody could identify it, knew who it owned or anything. But the next morning I had to post bond and go to court over it. Now, anybody that, in my eyes, anybody that has a child to be attacked by a dog, whether he knows it or not, the word is dog gone, whether it be animal control officer or if it's a county deputy. He's going to find the evidence that's going to be laying there. And that ain't much of a human to let that go by. Thank you for the stuff.
Chairman Hill, may I address?
Yes, sir.
I sit on the Animal Shelter Board, and I'd have to disagree with Commissioner Johnson because we have looked at this problem for the last year and ongoing. In fact, I see that Attorney Harden is on the line, and he has done quite a bit of work for us. Attorney Harden, can you address what the Animal Shelter Board, one, requested of you, and three iterations, I believe, that you went through to make sure that we were citing only state law?
Well, I will say that over a period of years, I have been asked several times to look at the animal shelter regulations, and initially the draft I was given to work off of was from Knoxville, Knox County, and I, through their request over several times over a period of years, whittled that document down to something similar to to what exists today, and what essentially is state law violations that are simply made county regulations, which a officer, not a law enforcement officer, but an animal control officer could write a citation for, could write a misdemeanor civil violation, not a misdemeanor, but a civil violation that could be heard in court and they could be fined for it. But all of those essentially are just existing state laws that are made county regulations with a fine attached, a civil fine. A dog running at large is a misdemeanor civil offense, or a misdemeanor criminal offense right now that an officer could write a ticket for, a police officer could write a ticket for, and that would go through court. Just like an animal control officer could write this ticket, and the same thing would happen, except for the end result is a civil fine only, $50. Now we got into a whole
Whoa.
Houston, we have a problem.
If that answers your question. I kind of rambled there.
You kind of froze up there for a minute, and I know those of us on Stony Creek have a little bit difficulty at times with our internet. So.
Sorry about that. Yeah. The bottom line was most of the existing regulations that we came up with there are modeled directly after state law violations, and they're just made county regulations so we could civilly fine people for them. That's the end result of what's there. That's what the Animal Shelter Board has gotten to over multiple attempts and a few years of working on it.
Yeah. Well, and you would agree, along with Sheriff Lunsford, I would hope, that I don't know that there's a way for, if let's say we hired an individual to be a quote unquote dog catcher. I don't know how much authority they would have other than running down dogs on public right-of-ways, because I would imagine that they can't go on people's property. nor would the sheriff want them to do that, I don't think.
Right.
And it would be a violation of law. So, as we look at, and I agree, I really appreciate Sheriff Lunford saying, how we can work together, how we could do this. It's our first rodeo, if you will. How we work this out. I mean, without putting people in an unlawful position to do a job that turns out to be unlawful.
Let me say this, Josh just reminded me, about the animals running at large. An officer gets on the scene and someone's complaining about an animal running at large, and we see it run down the road or through someone's yard. And you say, well, who's that dog belong to? And they say, well, it belongs to Mr. Lunsford over there. And we go over there and ask Mr. Lunsford, that's your dog. And he says, no. Well, we're done. And I'm not going to tie up an officer for 2 or 3 or 4 hours or days to try to determine who the dog belongs to. And you have to determine who that dog belongs to accurately before you can build probable cause to post that charge. So that's a lot of problems with running that dog, running at large. They're running at large, but whose dogs are they? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that was, I think, maybe the goal of the animal shelter board was to have, somebody available who could spend the time on that, that didn't have more urgent things to do other than run that down and take care of that issue. I mean, the bottom line is, do we want, we have an animal shelter, it's a receiving facility. You have to decide whether or not you want people to go out from that facility and do things in the community. Otherwise, they need to stay at the animal shelter receiving facility. And a dog running at large in traffic is a traffic hazard, might be a public safety hazard. An officer would respond. But I think if they get there and the dog's gone, they're not going to spend a lot of time, searching for the dog. It's not a fugitive from justice, Scrappy that ran through the intersection. So law enforcement has got to move on to more urgent things. And if you want to have an animal shelter response, then it needs to be a designated response, and they can go out and deal with non-emergent issues like someone found a box of puppies in their yard or whatever. But if not, you need to have law enforcement and an animal shelter receiving facility where every employee drives in and stays there and works until it's time to go home and leaves. And nobody's going out to people's houses and answering calls and trying to deal with things, because that's not the role of the animal shelter. That would be a separate, dog catcher or whatever you want to call
them. Just to give y'all a point of reference so you'll have some idea. Last 12 months, we averaged 68 calls for service here at the sheriff's office. So that's how busy the officers are. So you'll have some idea. That's not animal calls, it's all calls, 68 per day.
Yeah. Sheriff, would you, you indicated, as I said earlier, this is our first rodeo as relating to this whole gamish. If we had, and we're going to talk about this at the Animal Shelter Board meeting, I think it's next week. If we had a so-called dog catcher, would there be any way that they could dovetail with some of the efforts in the sheriff's department, help in any way? I mean, would you see that as being a hindrance or a help?
I think it would be a help, but as long as they work for the animal shelter. But,
sure. I'm not asking you to pay for it.
There's no about paying for it. And some of you all do understand the amount of complaints and calls that this generates. It's a lot of aggravation. But yes, and again, the truck, we moved it over to the other building, the truck's available. I will help any way that I can help. I'll sit down and talk with any of you, whatever we can help. But absolutely. But as far as training and things like that, again, that's not in my mind. I've trained enough time and money throughout the year other than getting into training people for animal control. But an animal or a dog catcher. But again, now, you need to manage expectations here, because if you hire a dog catcher, there's people going to think that 24/7 you have someone driving around in a van with a net picking up stray dogs. And I make the joke that we have 5,324 stray dogs in this county.
Yeah.
Where are we going to put them?
Right. And I mean, Commissioner Holdren presented at financial management, at least two organizations that I presume cater to animal control officers specifically, but I would imagine that dog catcher could be a part of that without being under any jurisdiction by the law. They could go through that training and may become a better dog catcher, but understand that they can't and will not act as an officer of the law.
Understand?
Chairman Hill,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add too, going about the animal control. You know, the surveys and what we had worked on involved 15 counties and jurisdictions. And out of all of those, of which the full commission will get your packages, will show you that only 2 law enforcement agencies actually do any animal control at all, out of 15. Now, if they're so wise and thoughtful, why didn't they know that? And then what their jurisdictions are, and what their duties are, and how they work. Going out here for stray animals don't cost us. What cost us is the operation sitting down there on the ground. That's almost $500,000, but is that discussed? I think the priorities are just a little bit long or wrong. And that's why it needs to be analyzed before you go in and start expending more funds of money that we don't have for a providing of revenue for our county, even for its own service. Coming up with ideas if they have to go, and if it is approved by the commission for a 501(c)(3), that has to be the judgment of the majority of the 24 sitting in there. And I think that the information that be provided is well written, and it is supported by the documents of where you can make a logical decision on the routes that you need to go. Even to a point, even our county attorney addressed it, even to the point to where we can just say, you know, we're going to abolish the MOU. It is your total animal shelter if we want to, and we have full authority to do that, or to reduce any budget amount that they have period. Just say, that's it. Make do with what you have. But we went through the full length to make sure that the information there for, regardless of what board or what commissioner reads it, that they can come up with a conclusion on the route they need to go on.
Chairman Hill, can I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
I've just got a question I'm a little confused about. So, and Shannon may need to chime in to help me figure this out. So the volunteers or the people that are going out right now for us and getting strays or getting animals out of the cold, are they getting those animals off of private property? How are they getting control of them? How are they getting them to the shelter? What types of property is it coming from? Is it private property that's abandoned, or how are we getting these calls of animals being out in the cold, or where are they located?
As the calls come in through 911, there's calls that's been out, several calls. Our phone has been nonstop at the shelter. We're getting calls from animals that has insufficient housing, that is running at large. There's some that's been hit by a car, some that's been on the road. My staff has been called out. A deputy had came across one down here on 321 one night and had called one of my staff members' cell phones to come and get the dog because it was hit by a car laying there in pain. So the dog, she put it in her car and she took it to the emergency clinic. So one time, an animal control officer, we did have an animal control officer on call that was tied up, but she sat there with the dog again until that the officer came and took it for medical treatment, which the dog was busted up so bad, there was nothing that could be done. But Patty, do you have a specific incident that you're talking about?
No, I'm just curious if say a neighbor calls at an abandoned property and there's dogs left on that property, how do we get permission for someone from the shelter to go on that property to take those animals?
So the shelter's not going out. I don't have the staff to send out to pick these animals up. So those calls are going through 911. Sheriff, you can chime in if I'm not correct. But if a house is abandoned and say the people are in jail or no known whereabouts, they will contact the landowners or the homeowners, the renters, the people who own the house. And they will ask us to come, in which we refer right back to 911 for someone to go get the animals. If the person who owns the house or the trailer or hut, whatever it may be, gives the person permission to retrieve those animals from that house, then that person can go in there, but they have to have permission from the owner of the house or the owner of the animals. You can't just walk on somebody's property and take an animal from it. That's in the state of Tennessee, animals are property. You can't just walk up and take someone's animal. There has to be a reason for that animal to be removed. And just like if I walked up on your property right now and said, hey, you know, that's my dog, and you say, no, it's my dog, get off my property, then you have to leave your property or you're trespassing. So there's strict laws that go with it. You just can't walk upon somebody's property and pick up an animal. Now, if there are strays going through somebody's property, you know, there is a running at large state law. So we've had several calls about strays, and that's the majority of your calls. A lot of it is strays and aggressive animals. You know, during winter months, you're going to hear that, well, this animal's freezing, just like Lunsford explained before. You know, it's out there and it's 20 degrees outside. As long as it has food, water, and shelter, that's the things that these officers are looking for when they go out there. You can't, now you can obviously, it's up to the officer. If he deems it necessary that it's insufficient, then he can make it known for the animal to be removed. But there's a lot of calls that go in just for running at large. If it's not the person, the caller's animal, they have a right to call and ask for the animal to be removed, especially if it's aggressive or if it's harm to an elderly person trying to come out of the house. Or we've had calls that animals, pit bulls, have kept people in the house or they couldn't get out of their car. You know, there's all kinds of situations out there. But this necessarily, I agree with the sheriff, this doesn't need to type an officer either. This needs to be someone who can go and relieve the officer and, you know, take the dog but, you know, if they're strays, they're going to roam. So did that answer your question?
To answer your call about abandoned animals, if an officer responds to a call for an abandoned animal, he can determine that that animal has been abandoned. But you have to determine that no one lives at that place, then we would have the authority to have the animal shelter send someone to pick the dog up, and we would enter the property, not forcefully enter a residence necessarily, but we're talking it's in the dog house or in the backyard, and remove that dog if it's been abandoned. But you have to determine that has been abandoned.
Shannon, I guess what I'm referring to, I know at your last animal shelter board meeting, you had a shelter volunteer mention that she had to go out to a property and pick up two dogs on the property, abandoned dogs. And I was really curious as to how that came about, if it was a property, and how one of our shelter volunteers was able to do that. I guess that's what I'm getting at. I think it was small dogs.
Okay, she's not a shelter volunteer. She was a Humane Society volunteer. And she came across these dogs because the dogs was outside. They was Chihuahuas, and they were running right at the road. Her road meets where the house was straight across when she pulls out from her house, is my understanding. So she had tried to get these dogs. Upon trying to retrieve these dogs, the mama dog had brought a puppy out, which she was told by the landowner that the dogs had been abandoned. The lady was in jail, and they had not been there in some amount of time. So the lady started leaving food out for the animals and trying to catch the animals per the landowner's request because the landowner could not get the dogs. She
Okay,
asked us to come out. We went out after work. I went out after work one day and I said, look, there's not a Chinaman's chance that I can catch these dogs. Somebody's going to have to spend some time. The landowner wanted the dogs removed. And so she was in contact with the landowner. And it took some time for them to catch the animals. And when they did catch them, of course, we did take them into the shelter.
okay, thank you. I was just curious if I was missing a step on how we can go on property. And I didn't know. That was just a question for my knowledge.
No. I appreciate you asking. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, before this gets any further into the weeds and away from the agenda bullet points, does anyone have any further law enforcement related questions regarding animal control for the sheriff? And if not, I'd like to try to move on. And hearing none, I will say that what we have from my casual observer seat here in the cheap seats is a sheriff who has actually tried to go above and beyond and assist. And we also have a shelter director who has tried to go above and beyond and assist in things. And unfortunately, people ask for more if of a volunteer, it seems. But I don't think that there's anything else relevant to the law enforcement piece of this. Unless there's anything further, I'd like to move on to item 3. And hearing none, that would be any other old or new business we haven't met in a while. And we will move right into agenda item 4, public comments. Are there any folks from the public that'd like to sound off on the topic discussed this evening? And lastly, item 5, commissioner comments. Any further comments from commissioners?
Chairman Hill, even though this is a law enforcement issue, I don't want the financial management folks to think that we're not grateful for what they have done and put their effort in. I laud Chair Holdren for her leadership and the presentations that they gave. I'll say, as I always do when it comes to the animal shelter, that this is a partnership between the county and the city. The county does contribute over $140,000, at least in the 2019-2020 budget. So I think as we go forward, and I think I heard the discussion at financial management, and I think Chairman Hill, Travis Hill, indicated that there would be a workshop addressing this issue, and we would include the city as a part of that discussion. Chairman or Commissioner Johnson may be right. Maybe we want to dissolve the MOU. Maybe we don't want that partnership anymore between city and county, and that will be decided going forward. But I would hope that we do recognize that this is a working partnership. I appreciate what financial management has done, and I thank the sheriff for coming on tonight and also indicating that, which he always does, the ability to reach across the aisle, if you will, and work with us. So thank you.
Yes, sir. And may I add, if I could, please, again, about these, what I heard, someone tells you something, please don't repeat it. If you'll get to specifics and call me, I promise you I will get you an answer. And as always, my door is open for any questions, comments, or any way that I can help with anything. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff, for coming tonight. And I'll reiterate Dr. Acuff's statement. Financial management has put in a lot of work. I sent Commissioner Holdren an email to that effect earlier today. In fact, I watched the meeting back. Anyway, thank you for entertaining this tonight, everyone. And with that, I'll open the floor for a motion to adjourn here at 6:55.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
I'll
Motion
second.
Commissioner Holdren, second from Commissioner Grindstaff. All in favor? I don't think we have to do that. We'll move right on to the next issue.
Hmm.
Who's that?
We stand adjourned.
Yeah, but who's up next?
Dr. Acuff, do you want to go ahead and touch on yours? You have those 2 resolutions and
Sure. Thank you, sir. I'll call the Health and Welfare Committee to order. The agenda has been distributed, but as each of you recognize, I sent out 2 resolutions, one from the mayor's office and one from Attorney Harden, which we need to add to the agenda. So as I'm looking at the agenda, we would add the resolution for OSHA compliance is number 5, and the resolution for Hampton Utility District to make upgrades to their water system through the Community Development Grant block grants is number 6. If there is no objection to that, and again, we'll work off the roll call of the Law Enforcement Committee, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve that updated agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Grindstaff. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holder. Any discussion about the agenda? Anything else that people want to see on there? If not, Gwen, would you please call the roll to approve the agenda?
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is open for public comment. Is there anyone zooming in with us tonight that would like to comment to the Health and Welfare Committee? I don't see any hands raised or any voices out there, so we'll close the floor to public comment. And Attorney Harden, I'll turn it over to you for the resolution for OSHA compliance.
Okay, this is going to be a 3-hour in-depth look at OSHA. Not really. This is a pretty much a cookie cutter update to the existing OSHA plan. It was last done in 2013. So just very minor changes, and it's required every so often. So this was initiated through Billy Harrell with the EMA office. And it's the only thing that's missing from the version you all have was Appendix 1, I think, that was the breakdown of all the different workstations, so to speak, in the county and how many people were employed there. And he's since got that to me. There's some minor changes to be made, but other than that, that's nothing to do with the meat of the resolution. So it's just a required update by the feds.
And I understand there is that Director Harrell has also provided a list of numbers of people at different sites that I assume this would impact.
Yeah, that was the Appendix 1 I was talking about that's missing.
Okay.
And he sent it, and there was some little problems with it, and he's going to rectify that tomorrow, and then it'll be in the final draft. But it's just nothing of substance other than a breakdown of the number of employees.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Attorney Harden regarding the resolution?
Chairman, I move that we adopt the amended document in its final form once Josh passes the smell test. This is Mike Hill from District 2.
Yeah. So Commissioner Hill makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Gwen, please call the roll to vote up or down the resolution.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yeah.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes.
Thank you all. The resolution passes unanimously. Item number 6 is a resolution for Hampton Utility District to make upgrades to their water system through the Community Development Block Grants. And those of you that read that resolution understand, I think there's $600,000 on the table. There's also a 4%, I believe, Mayor, that goes along with that for either payback or investment. That's coming from the mayor's office. It essentially gives her the power to sign on behalf of the county. And I know that Attorney Harden crafted it. So if you or the mayor have any further things that you want to add, please do.
I don't, and that's correct, Dr. Acuff. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I actually didn't craft this one.
Oh, okay.
I saw it when you saw it. I normally would do that and put it in our format, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't know anything about it.
Okay, thanks.
Chairman Acuff?
Yes, Abby, go ahead.
That came in from First Tennessee Development District. It is similar to the Community Development Block Grant that was recently initiated for the Dry Hollow Water Project. This one will benefit Hampton Utility and allow them to replace some old and outdated lines and work on some water loss issues. And as with the grant that is on the Dry Hollow project, Hampton Utility District will be picking up the matching share of that grant, so there'll be no cost to the county.
Okay. Thank you for that interjection, Abby. I appreciate you. Any further discussion?
Chairman, Mike Hill, District 2, I move to adopt this resolution.
Okay,
I'll second, Mr. Chair. Isaiah Grindstaff.
thank you. We have a duly made motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Gwen, call the roll for a vote up and down on the motion.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Gwen, it looks like you've accidentally muted yourself.
sorry about that. Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes.
Okay, resolution or the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks for your comments too, Abby. I always appreciate you. Item number 7 is broadband internet update. I think many of you have already received a string of emails from Ken Ray to Brad Shields of Ridgelink. And I did late this afternoon get a email from Brad Shields that they have reached out to the state of Tennessee, to the governor's office for rural broadband funding. And so they had begun that discussion. I think everyone knows they've already done the pre-engineering for District 6. And as many surveys as we have for District 6, 2, and 1, please keep them coming. Chairman or Commissioner Johnson has a great idea, which I've reached out to J.R. Campbell regarding working with church leadership in District 6, Little Milligan, Pogie, Elk Mills, to try to get more of the surveys filled out and back to Ridgelink to make the case before their board. So we're moving ahead. I think we've picked a great partner and they're working hard for us. So that's the upgrade. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item 8, which is the homeless task force update. The task force met this past week. I was appreciative that the mayor was on the call and contributed very much to the discussion. As you know, Brandon Young, who is counselor at Cloudland Elementary and also the pastor at Harmony Baptist, leads that effort. And several of us, Commissioner Hill, myself, Brandon Young, Tom Hobson, Allison Tibbs, met with Crystal Carter to help count the homeless this past week. And what we found out was that we had a rich discussion about how little we communicate in this county about the needs of the homeless. So I know the mayor contributed significantly. Brandon has a great idea, which I think will flesh out at the next homeless task force, which is, I think, February the 11th, if my memory serves me correct. And it will be an opportunity to bring more people into the fold, to talk with pastors, to talk with other 501c3 entities that serve that, and maybe come up with a one-stop shopping for folks in need. I think it was a great idea. As we flesh that out, I think you'll appreciate it. I don't want to steal any of Brandon Young's thunder or particularly his enthusiasm, so I'll let him roll it out maybe at the next health and welfare meeting. No questions on the homeless, or is there any new or old business to come before the committee?
Chairman, I'd just like to make one comment about the homelessness task force. It was very moving to be able to be present while I think we watched something wonderful get birthed in that room. And you have exactly the right person chairing that task force in Pastor Young. Anyway, exciting stuff and heartbreaking at the same time. Thank you for the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Others, new or old business? Hearing none, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Then we are adjourned.
Randall, do you want to go ahead and do yours?
No, you can go ahead, sir. It's fine. I have nothing pressing tonight, unless you all have something for me. So,
Randall, the only question that I have, and we've discussed this on and off about the redistricting that's supposed to occur, and where are we in that process? Have you reached out to Tracy Harris? Do we know what our next steps to do, or how can we help you, or how can we move this initiative forward? Because it's going to be right up on us before much longer.
from what I understand, any other time this month, the month of February, we should be getting our numbers, but with COVID, I understand that it might be the end of February, maybe next month. As of right now, I don't think we have received those numbers. Mayor, I don't think, unless it's came into her office, I haven't received any emails from anybody yet. So as I understand, we're still at a standstill until we get those numbers. And then we've already discussed what the body looks like that needs to do the work. So
Okay.
We're just at a standstill until we get our numbers.
Right. Well, and I know you've encouraged, and several of us have, looked at the CTAS videos and others that are available to move through that process. I thank you for keeping you and Commissioner Grindstaff for reminding us about that issue and about those videos out there.
Absolutely. They're good. If you guys haven't watched them, I learned some stuff in them, both videos so far. I don't think there's a third. If there is, I've missed it. Isaiah, correct me if there is. But I've got links to them. If I sent them out last meeting.
Yes, you did.
To one of them. So, just let me know and I'll send them out again if I need to. So. Since I'm talking, Isaiah, I can go ahead and go. I'll just go ahead and call rules and bylaws to order. And we'll keep the same roll call. Is everybody good to go? Do we need to take a break or anything?
Figured that we could go ahead and do yours since you said you didn't really have anything, and then we could take a break and then go right into building and grounds.
So okay, that sounds good. While the floor is open, I'll just, does anybody have any questions about the process, or have they watched the videos and had any questions? And I'll reach out to anybody that we need to do as of right now. But from my understanding, we're just waiting on the numbers. And once we get that and we get this package from them, it's game on. You know, we'll do it as fast. We have basically till the beginning of the year to get it done. The quicker we do it, the better, but not so much. We don't need to rush it and make mistakes. We need to get it done because they do all the other districting off off what we do. So basically,
Chairman Jenkins, Brad Johnson.
yes, sir.
Brenda, did the federal government go back and have our census people activated again? Because I know during the part of the pandemic, which it was spreading across the nation, and also during the hot point, I'm going to say, of the election year, they were pretty pulled back, you know, from doing their assigned duty. And I know that's a very critical number that you have to have, and all of us does, when you start putting down boundaries and moving precincts around. So is that going to be as available to us quickly, or is that something still going to be delayed?
Well, that was my understanding. Like any other, like back in 2011, these numbers would have been available to us this month for sure. I do understand that they did get a little bit behind, and they're concerned that it might be next month before we get those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they got everything finished and finalized. I haven't heard anything different. I hope to the Lord they can get us everything that we need. You all, the ones that watched those videos, I didn't hear anything to that effect that we shouldn't be getting those numbers. I'm pretty sure everything got finalized. We're just waiting on the federal government to do, or the Census Bureau to do their thing. And we all know how that happens. You know, government works so fast. We might hold on to our hats.
But
Chairman Jenkins?
Yes, ma'am.
The last conversation I had with our district rep for the census, he said that everybody was counted. They pushed the deadline back a few times because of COVID, as far as to when to get the actual count finished, but they did get it complete. He said they got, I think it was 99.8% of all identified residences numerated, which is a really good percentage of getting some kind of response from them. And he said that there may be a slight delay in getting the numbers, but they are still trying to push through to that end of this month deadline.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So we might still be on track. And even if we are a month behind, like I said, we have till the end of the year to get it done. I don't want to wait that long, by no means, but we'll see what happens. Thank you, Abby, for that input. Does anybody else have any questions about that? All right. Well, totally skipped some stuff there, but I'll do a motion to approve the agenda, which has nothing on it but the minutes.
So moved. Acuff first.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Second. All right. Any discussion on the agenda? Call the roll, please.
Gwen, you're muted again.
Sorry. Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill, Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes.
All eyes. Any public comments? Any public on the phone call? Don't see any. All right, moving on.
Randall, you're muted.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Maybe I should have thought about that during the full commission too.
Well, you can't be held guilty when words that you can't spell, you know?
Well, on that note, I will be moving on. I guess I'll open up the floor for a motion to adjourn.
So
Moved, District 3, Brad Johnson.
Do we have a second?
Second, Acuff first.
All right. So how did you do that? Oh, we don't need to call roll. When, if you want to call roll on that, we can. I'm pretty sure it's all eyes. So do we stand adjourned?
Go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Be back 25 minutes after 7 since nobody else will do it. Shoot, far.
Seems like a plan. Everybody, please mute your mics.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we can go ahead and start getting back. Gwen, if you don't mind, if you'll go ahead and call the roll, make sure everybody's back. I'd appreciate it.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Here.
Robert Acuff,
Here.
Brad Johnson,
Here.
Thomas Prophet,
Here.
Ginger Holdren,
Here.
Daniel McInturf,
Here.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
I'm here. All right, everybody. Everybody's back. Everybody's present and accounted for. We'll go ahead and call the Building and Grounds Committee to, sorry, I got stuck on my chair. Go ahead and call the Building and Grounds Committee to order. The agenda I sent out earlier today, I apologize. It wasn't earlier on. However, I was unable to get to it. Don't really have a lot of business. We have some old business, some updates if there is any. We have one item of new business. The only thing I need to change is where it says approval of December and January minutes. Need to change that to November and December meeting minutes because we are a month behind in those meeting minutes. And with that being the only change, I'll open the floor for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second, Acuff.
Got a motion by Commissioner Hill and a second by Dr. Acuff. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, ma'am, if you will, call the roll, please.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes. That motion passed with all ayes. The approval of the November and December meeting minutes, those will be in your, the November minutes were in your December packet for full commission, and the December minutes was in your January packet for full commission.
Motion
I'll,
to approve.
thank you, sir. I've got a motion by Mike Hill, second by
Second, Tom Profit.
Commissioner Profit. Any discussion or changes if you, as you read through those? Seeing none, ma'am, if you will, please call the roll.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Profit,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes. All ayes, motion passes. Next is public comments. I know we have mostly, I think, commissioners on the line, if there still are. If anybody would like to say anything at this time. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the new business, which is a Parks and Rec and mayoral request. I'll go ahead and turn that over to Mayor Woodby. She approached me with this, and I think she can be the best to explain.
Thank you, Chairman Grindstaff. The Parks and Rec Board and myself have a discussion. We are requesting to name the Roan Mountain Park after Eric Anderson. I don't know if many of you know him. I know Commissioner Mike Hill's very close with him. He's been a great asset to that park. You can go there any time of the year and Eric will be there. So we thought we would recognize him to give him this honor. And I have already ordered a plaque to do this for him also. So we wanted to get the approval of the Building and Grounds Committee to push this through to commission. And we're also, I think Randall, if he would like to chime in as part of this, he is working on getting some information on Eric that's pertinent to the resolution so we can present it at the full commission meeting.
He's an A1 guy. I mean, I don't think I've ever, in my, 6 years of working with people, he is just top notch. I mean, I haven't met a finer person to work with. So I am working on that. I have a couple emails sent out. Mike, if you want to add anything, but as of right now, it's a work in progress. And we should have it ready pretty soon.
Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we immediately proceed with this. I will say that Eric Anderson, how often do you ever get to meet a real life rocket scientist in your life? He worked with NASA, retired to Roan Mountain. The community park has become a true community center. Together, we have written grants. We have secured Appalachian Trail community status. The catalyst for everything else, the farmer's market. I often joke with him about, remember back in the day when you used to always tell me no, but so many things he's touched. I believe he would probably be the first person to decline this honor, which is why I absolutely believe he is the exact person that this should be bestowed on. I move that we proceed with the renaming of the park, and I'd appreciate a second.
I will second that, Acuff, First District.
And just an FYI, he is not aware of this at all. This will be a complete surprise to him. So we plan on trying to, I think Ken's going to try to get him to join the commission meeting, just basically saying that we need his help on something. And this will be a surprise to him. So in case anybody sees him, let's try to keep it that way.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, he has a milestone birthday that's imminent as well.
That's even better.
Mr. Chairman Brad Johnson.
Hold on just one second, Brad. I've got a motion by Mike Hill and a second by Bob Acuff, and I'll open the floor for discussion. I know we've had quite a bit. Brad, you're recognized.
I ask for consideration of a friendly motion on to Commissioner Hill that with that naming that park, that the county should afford the small stipend to have a sign made recognizing that, to where everybody in the community and all passerbyers in that community can see that that park has been named that way publicly. They will know when it is referenced to.
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson, Parks and Rec Board plans on doing that. That's already in the works also.
Okay, then I'll take it back in.
Any other comment on this? I will say, in the 6 years, well, 4 years, I guess, that I'd been on building and grounds, we've had several things that have come up with Parks and Rec, and it always centered around the Rome Mountain. Most of it centered around the Rome Mountain Community Park. And every time that something came up, he was, either he made himself available. He was on the phone. He was at the meeting. Most of the time he was at the meetings. He came to us several times. I remember the last thing I worked with him on was the committee the money for the fencing, to replace the fencing to the flooding that we had. So I know that he has put a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and heart into that park, and continues to do so. And I think this is absolutely wonderful. So hearing no other comment, we'll go ahead and proceed with the vote. Ma'am, if you will, please call the roll.
Randall Jenkins,
Yes.
Mike Hill,
Yes.
Robert Acuff,
Yes.
Brad Johnson,
Yes.
Thomas Prophet,
Yes.
Ginger Holdren,
Yes.
Daniel McInturf,
Yes.
Isaiah Grindstaff.
Yes. That's all ayes. Madam Mayor, if you will, and Commissioner Jenkins, continue on, and we look forward to this, later this month. Next step is I have the listing of old business. If you will just breeze through that, look through and see if there are any questions. I know that about anything that we have. I'm not aware of any updates on my own. If anyone would like to chime in with any of those projects to do an update, I'll open the floor at this time.
Isaiah, if you'll allow me, I'll do an update on the Chancellor's door.
Yes, ma'am.
So the plans for that door is finished. It's currently getting ready to go out to bid. It's looking great. And in getting to learn all this, and I know Commissioner Johnson will probably agree, Sean Shanks is absolutely talented. I've never seen such detail in any type of schematics or drawings. We looked at those thoroughly, what they've done, and it's just absolutely amazing. So we now have full-fledged drawings of the entire bottom floor of the courthouse that we didn't have before. So everything's moving along great with that project. It's getting ready to go out for bid. And on the workforce development, I recently got Tim Shaw the deed to the building, and we are looking for surveyors right now to nail one down to get there to do the survey. So that's where we're at on the workforce development. That's moving along quite really, really well, actually. And we're talking, and I'm staying in touch with those guys at least every other day and through email. So just a great company. They really are. I just want to brag on them a little bit. Just some great guys. And I think that is all I have. Any new updates, unless anybody's got any questions on those two projects. I know, Isaiah, you received the email on the courthouse security, correct?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I thought I seen your name on there. The door, they will begin that project on the 8th. The door should be here sometime this week, but that project's supposed to begin on the 8th to finish putting the door in the bottom of the courthouse. I think it's about a week project, from what I can tell from her email, and that will be finished up. And then nothing new on the chamber yet, and nothing new on the Northeast State contract that I'm aware of. But I did want to bring up something to the committee on the ADA transition plan, and I don't know if this will fall under it or if we need to address it in some other way, but as you know, the bottom floor of the courthouse does not have handicap accessible restrooms. They're on the second floor. So we're having our people come up in wheelchairs and walkers or what it may be through the elevator to the second floor to get to the handicap accessible restrooms. And I'm just really confused about that. But I really think that we need to make that bottom floor handicap accessible. And I don't think there'd be much to it other than making a larger stall. But I wanted to bring that to the committee. And also, I know this is not required, but we need a changing station for our women that are coming in the courthouse with small children. We don't have that there. So that's something I wanted to bring up. I don't know if that is part of the ADA or if, you know, but I really feel like the two restrooms downstairs need to be handicap accessible.
May I speak to that, Chair Grindstaff?
Yes.
That was exactly what Gary Smith, that's what Gary Smith and I came up with a few months ago as priority number one, was to make those downstairs bathrooms handicap accessible. But I don't really remember the reasons why, but it kind of got shot down in this committee. But that was what he and I thought should happen first. So
If I can, I think I remember that meeting, or remember a meeting where we discussed this in the past. There was some concern about the size of the bathrooms as they exist, because you are required to have, as odd as it sounds, you're required to meet the needs of so many individuals at a certain amount of time, and that the bathrooms would actually have to be looked at by an engineer and architect to have that drawn out, and make sure that they meet those space and needs requirements. I think Brad could probably chime in a little bit more on that. He's more familiar with that than I am, but I remember that coming up and being an issue. Real quick, while we're on that, and I think that would be a very good first step. And I know that we have some monies available to put towards that. The other piece, Mayor, I wanted to ask was, after we get the door to a point where that project is maneuvered on, the next step I think that we need to have Sean Shanks take is to do the remainder of the floor plans for that building.
Okay.
So the upstairs and then the new addition. By that point, hopefully everything for the most part should be finished. That would give us a complete set for that building, something that to my knowledge,
Something we don't have.
Yeah. We have it in bits and pieces and rough drawings. So I would like to see that be one of the next steps. That's something that's absolutely needed and will start moving us forward. So
I will let them know. I agree with that. We actually have those they're great. I mean, and now we have an actual set of floor plans up through to Mary's office, minus the new section there, which we'll need to include if we take them on for the upstairs in that section.
correct. If you can just kind of get us an estimate on that so that we can plan, but that
I will.
that's definitely needs to be taken under.
Chairman Grindstaff, Brad Johnson.
Sir.
A couple of the items. Let's go to the ADA requirements for the bathrooms on the first floor that the mayor referenced to. I think in your ADA survey that it was noted, and I think it still stands true, that we don't have the necessary square footage to be able to go in and modify for a full handicap bathroom. Now, we can have Charles and Shanks, we can direct them to verify that, but that's something that one of the hit items that we need to overcome. And at the time, if you remember, we were talking about multiple variants as the next projects and what we could tackle first to try to help eliminate them. But that being an 1800 series building, there's not too much you can work with there. So that may be also the thing. That's why they directed it to the second floor, because you had room up there to open it up to accommodate larger stalls for the wheelchair people. Now, as far as the changing stations, Lord, we got 50 desks in that bottom floor down there.
Now listen, Brad, I said the same thing. I said, I've changed youngins everywhere.
Well, I know, but it could be an educational thing for some of our employees to learn how to get a hold of both feet at one time and slide a diaper under. But the other thing, Go ahead.
Would it be the committee's will? Would you, do you want me to inquire with Shaw and Shanks on looking at the restrooms and seeing if, and getting the square footage and see if that's something that we can or can't do?
Yes.
That's the only way you're gonna find out is they
Okay.
measure it out and go against the ADA and the national handicap requirements, minimum requirements, if it'll fit in there. And if it does, then we can request they go ahead and proceed with the design of it. And if we can't, then we're gonna have to go for an alternative.
Okay.
And then they may be able to give you suggestions on this.
And that was going to be my next question was, I remember that coming up that there was something, it had to do with the space and things, but if we don't have the room there, quite often you see in locations that are having to, that had to make an accessible area, we could always add or have the potential to add a single restroom with a changing station and things downstairs if we could find the space for it and the plumbing and things met the requirements. So that may just be something that if they kick back with and say, yeah, there's just no way, there's no room, to see if we could do that, maybe in the I don't know. We'd have to sit down and look at those drawings. But they should be able to answer that question pretty quickly if they included the bathrooms on that first set of drawings.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really quick answer on those once I get him over there. These guys they're just really, really great guys. I'm really impressed with them and their work.
Yeah. Well, there's the other thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to mention, and it has to do with the workforce development. Of course, we have Shaw and Shanks actively doing the preliminary layouts, but if we just keep in mind, we're going to be into that project area for who knows, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. And then we have the other projects like the door of the clerk of master's office and the security building. And then now we know that they're going to do possibly the second floor of our facility. That between whichever one that either the office holder or our committee and commission designates, there needs to be a place to where when they get done with their design work or even for review purposes, that a single place, whether it be adjacent to the mayor's office where we can use the conference room to take the hard copy to stretch out to look when we're there visiting at the courthouse, or at the planning commission office, to where as commissioners during the month go through, they can go and review and update that also, because that's going to be a continuous thing. So whichever one you all would suggest.
Commissioner Johnson, I actually would recommend both. I would recommend that a copy of the plans be kept at the mayor's office for all of our county buildings. And I have no issues with, since we don't have an archives per se, that a copy of those, a second copy of those plans be kept in the planning office. And moving forward, I would like to see for each county building that we have, or group of county buildings. So let's say the Workforce Development Center, I know that they have a maintenance room or maintenance area up there. And if you are at that location and you do need to refer to plans, you don't want to leave and have to come down to the mayor's office or the planning office to try to look at them. Because I know that occurs several times in the buildings that we have now. So I would think that you would need a total of, a set of plans for the building itself, and then one to stay in the mayor's office, one to stay in the planning office or archival at a later date.
Yeah, that's very well needed, because just if you go back in your mind, we are in the process now of the preliminary study and layouts, and it also includes the school system, Dr. Maccabee, and then decisions that are having to be made, and to have the readable availability for review during the month or even at that time, or as the sheets of the drawings come off, they can be, handed off our monthly by our AEs.
And some dates for the chancellor's door. We do expect it to be fully completed by July. We did a timeline on it between the bid process and getting the contractor and getting everybody in. And Tim, we've got July 1 should be completely finished. They're really moving. They're moving on the workforce, and they've moved on this quickly. But of course, he says I aggravate him to death. So he said, "You're making us move." And I was like, "Yes." But they're good guys. I like them a lot.
Well, we'll have to get our singing deal, Rob and Roy, to come and play us a song while we're getting this done. You know.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. Madam Mayor, if you will, just as they complete plans like that, if we can make sure that we can get, obviously for the building there, you just really need 2 sets, but really 3 sets would be great. That way we can keep a copy at the building that is being, drawn out, and then a copy both at your office and if the planning office is willing, a copy at their office as well.
Okay.
That way we have, in case something happens or something gets lost, we have spare sets.
Okay. I'll do that.
Chairman Grindstaff,
Sir.
do we need to make a motion for Mayor Woodby to look into that handicap accessible bathroom?
I don't think we do. She's just going to ask them to look at, they already have the plans drawn for the first floor. If they could just look at it and give us an idea. She would definitely have to come back and get a motion from us before we entertain them doing any drawing or anything of that nature. If you wanted your motion to include that, then that most certainly could occur, pending the outcome of her inquiry. But just to inquire, I don't believe so.
Just as long as we're inquiring, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments about any of the old business items?
Since Attorney Harden is still with us, I'd like to ask him if he has anything new on the Tom Cowan building since his last email to me and the mayor and others.
No, since the last email I sent you, I haven't spoken with Ms. Cowan anymore.
Do you think she's working on it?
I'm afraid, she seemed like a very nice lady, and I'm afraid, frankly, that she's found out information she didn't want to find out. But I have not heard from her, and I don't know that for a fact. So I'm afraid there might be some federal tax issues and judgment issues that I have to set up out of that purchase.
Okay, thank you, Attorney.
Josh, if you don't mind, can you just summarize basically where we were at with that and that last conversation, that last email, just so that everybody's kind of on the same page?
Sure. There was a bunch of tax liens filed by the IRS against both Tom and Ron McCowan that would have attached to any property they owned, and those dated back to the 90s for some unpaid federal taxes. It appears that all of those had been paid and released, and I was under the impression mistakenly that they were divorced, but that's not the case. And Ms. Cowan went into some things about, that they pretty much live separate financial lives, but, as I explained to her, as someone who does divorce work, that may not matter. And there was a federal judgment against Mr. Cowan for $270,000, and they had jointly owned this property to get, for 20 years, And then a year before this judgment went down, he quit claimed his interest to her, and they're still married. So, in my estimation, that doesn't make very much difference. And so I think this judgment would have attached to that property. And I've got no idea what the balance of it may be, but it started out at $270,000. So that's the concern is obviously if the county is going to entertain purchasing this, we want to make sure we're getting it free and clear of all liens. And I had given her the information for her to check on that and verify that, because ultimately it's her responsibility to make sure she's giving us good, clear title. And she said she would report back. The last I heard from her was the 15th of January. So I don't know if things may have gotten delayed with whatever she's doing, but that would be my concern, is that since they are in fact still married, it's not as easy as just giving something to your spouse and avoiding a very large federal tax judgment.
How would you and the committee feel about reaching back out to her if you haven't heard from her by February 15th or something like that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Like I said, she was very nice, and when I called her, she was happy to talk to me and acted like she would, try to find this stuff out and get it cleared up pretty soon. So I've got no problem at all with calling her, and just as a follow up and see where she's at. That's no problem.
I would just like for her to know that we still have some interest in that discussion. And I feel like you're a more appropriate person to talk to her since it is concerning legal stuff.
Yeah, I'll certainly call her. Like I said, when I did talk to her, I didn't get into any kind of price issues or valuation issues or anything like that. So I don't know where any of that stands, if she's gotten an appraisal or if she shared it with anyone that would warrant any, further interest or not. But I'll certainly reach back out to her about this and see if she's gotten any information.
She did share a number with me that she wants for the property, but she didn't share the actual appraisal with me.
Okay.
The only other issue that I pointed out in an email to you all was that there's a little bit of a title quirk with Tom and Rama had deeded a portion of the property to other folks at one time, and there was a myriad of restrictions about what it could be used for and no alterations and this and that. And instead of doing it when they were deeded the property back, instead of clearing all that up, the deed was prepared in such a way as now the Cowans and these former owners have the powers to enforce these restrictions, which is crazy, and could be cleared up, I think, assuming that all these people are still around to, sign off on that. And I have no idea who the other folks are. I know their names, but I don't know anything about them. So if something's going to go forward, we want to clear up that issue as well.
Okay. Thank you, County Attorney. I think we can all agree that the lien issue is a fairly big issue. I agree. Reaching back out to her, if you haven't heard from her by the 15th of this month, that gives her a month to try to check into things. We all know sometimes how the federal government can be, especially since it's been, what did Brad say earlier? Something about an election year. But anyway, if you could, that'd be great. And we'll take it from there. It seems that we need to get this lien issue cleared up first before any other steps can be discussed or determined.
Sure, and I'll do that, but keep in mind, obviously it's her issue, and if there was a purchase price, it would just have to pay that off if it wasn't settled. So it's her, it's in her interest to make sure it's clear. Otherwise, at any kind of closing, and we paid money for it, we're going to send money to the federal government.
Correct. And that's why I kind of want to, I guess, see is if, if anything had been taken care of or anything further had been taken care of there, and just kind of see what, I guess, if she is what she's asking for. However, that would be up to the committee at that point after we find that information out. So, but thank you, Josh, for working on that. Mr. Johnson, I think
Yeah, the other item I want to mention that's on our list of our projects are the Chamber of Commerce building. That was an action item on there that listed, they were to reach out to Attorney Roger Day concerning the possibility of purchasing that property. With that said, I think also at the time, everybody has basically went over and walked around the grounds in the building, and we've had Rob and Roy, they've done crawled underneath the bottom, and they've looked at the exterior skin and identified possibly where there may be some small amounts of damage due to non-maintenance throughout the year. But would it not be a good idea if the city decides or our attorneys decided it can be so, that we have a private firm to come in and to examine that building, the same as just about any more on residential dwellings when they're sold. Owners are going out and getting these companies to come in and give them an examination of the structure and everything the building. That we do likewise with that.
Commissioner Johnson, I was approached about that building. Just to add into that we may need to get it addressed or looked at for black mold. I know some of the previous chamber board member came to me and said that, they had a company come in and look at it, and there was some concern possibly with black mold, but they don't know how much truth there was. They never seen documents on it. And they did tell me that if we did look into that building, we may want to look at the black mold situation. If there is any, I'm not sure, but that was brought to my attention. Well,
during the time that we've been looking at it, of course, and I'm sure that you've experienced it also, you've had some from the left to say, hey, I wouldn't have that for nothing, and they didn't have any background or experience. They only seen what was cosmetic or facial, more or less. And then you have on the other side, well, it's all fine. Well, I think maybe we should go to the professional, which would be able to report on those things and tell us if that structure is structure worthy. If it is the way that it's currently set, it's going to require major work, or whether that work is worthy of the price that would be offered, and identify such things as molds, which of course black mold is not, my experience in building is not that big a thing because it's caused by moisture than any, but still that would be identified, and they're inexpensive to do. I mean, it's not a big bill, and they're licensed and registered in the state of Tennessee to do that, and there are several companies locally that can handle that.
Josh, would you care to reach out to Roger Day again on this? I've tried to reach out to Daniel. I think I've emailed him a couple of times. He hasn't. I don't know if he's gotten anything from Roger yet. This might be the issue, that Roger's busy, or I'm not real sure.
And I know that he had mentioned, Mayor, that Daniel had mentioned during the last, our joint meeting, that he would have Roger reach back out to Josh. They would look at it again too.
Yeah, that is what
unusual.
Daniel has told me too. So I'm not real sure. We're kind of at a standstill here on any decisions we can make if we can't really find out if it's an option.
Yeah, I'll call Roger directly. I did send the email to Mr. Estes on December 8th, explaining why I felt like they could definitely transfer the property to the county outside of any public bid process. And he said he would talk to Roger Day. But I'll call Mr. Day directly and see if he's looked at it at all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I mean, this basically falls into commissioner comments. So any other questions, comments, concerns, or any other items that you all wish to discuss with Building and Grounds?
Yeah, Chairman Grindstaff, one more thing.
Sure.
I just want to give an update on the probation building. They are currently preparing to move. I'm assuming they've found somewhere, and so that building will be vacant at the end of the month. And I just want to let the committee be aware, we may need to decide on what we will do with that building. If it sits empty, it's going to be in a lot worse shape than it currently is in. And I'm not really sure what the shape it is in until I can get in there to see it when they move out. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of that space that'll be available at the end of the month once they move out.
Has
That we may need to be thinking about some options on what we plan to do with that space.
to this point, has there been any office holders inquire about the use of that space once it's available?
No.
What do you feel, or even the committee, what do you feel that space would be best used for at this point in time? Mayor, you probably have the best understanding of the day-to-day operations and things as they go. We all are aware of some of the space issues that each office, states that they have and requires. So
I know a couple of options have been brought to my attention. I know when the records committee met discussing archives, it was brought up that would be a good space for the archives, even though it's not ADA compliant, but you could make the first floor ADA compliant if you had someone that, ran someone that done the operations. When someone come in, they would just go get the files and they would look at them in the front foyer area, if that was the way it was going to be ran. Also, it was a discussion for possible planning moving there, because as you know, the planning building I think is in really bad shape. It's, to me, they need a space better than what they're working out of, especially we've got the public coming in there and they're busy. I mean, I've been over there before and people are standing out the door to get in there. So it's kind of a eyesore for that to be our planning department, if you don't mind me saying. It's in bad shape also. So those were a couple of options that have been presented to me, but no other office holders have showed interest in that building.
okay. They'll be out by the end of the month. I can tell you, from my opinion, I think that it would be relevant for, once they get out, an assessment of that building completed, and then we need to make a determination of, if we're going to update that building, it would be prevalent to do so before anybody moves in. You hate to move somebody into a building and kick them out to update or renovate.
Yeah, I think that's the next step, is we can get in there and actually assess the building once they get completely out. And I've just been told by people that it's in really bad shape, and I don't know what really bad shape means, but I was told that about the chamber building. And to me, the chamber just needed some care. It really wasn't falling down or anything, but we just won't know until we can actually get inside the building.
Right. Once that's made, and of course we'll have another come close to another round of meetings once they have vacated. Can you have Ron and Roy? I know they have a lot to do, but have them go through and just kind of put together a preliminary idea of what needs to be done. If there is anything that's just outstanding that needs to be done, very noticeable damage, something like they've done to the Chamber of Commerce building. And then if that is if we need something at that point, or we think that something additional needs to be done, we could always hire, as Brad was talking about, an inspection company or a contractor company to come in and actually do a very massive inspection. I don't want to tie Ron and Roy down that much, because I know there's a lot of things to do.
Well, they love their new boss because they say I keep them hopping. But yes, I will come back to the committee next month with a report on the status of that building, and just so we can the committee decides on how we want to proceed with putting someone in there or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also, on a real quick note, we did the elections roof. We got the quote back on that, and it came in under a bidding process. So we're getting a couple more quotes. It's right under 25,000. I think it came in at 24 and some change. So Brad Burke said we could just go ahead and do the quote process. So we will get 2 more quotes, and we will begin that process.
Awesome. That'll be great.
I just want to throw a thought out there for everybody. I know this is just something that's in the talking stage, but we seem to be talking about it a lot now. If we were to approve hiring a grant writer, we need to give thought to where that person will be housed as well. And it seems like, you know, if we talk about a homeless task force being a 501c3, we talk about the animal shelter possibly being one, not to mention all the other things that have previously been mentioned for grant writing purposes. I think we're all starting to see that it is really a need. And so if we get to that point where we hire one, we need a space for them too. So everybody just keep thinking.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, then I'll open the floor for a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
adjourned.
I had so many motions, I don't know who talked first. Motion by Brad Johnson, second.
Holdren.
Second by Ginger Holdren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody opposed? We stand in adjournment.